which is more known to you also. I say, 3 people come here. 3 is a number. I use the word 3. Is this word 3 number? No, it is a word used for number. And this is a script used for the word. For example, there is the number 3. We will use the word 3 for it. The word 3 has nothing to do with the number. And the script we write has also nothing to do with the number. Then we write like this. Even this is only a symbol or a script which has nothing to do with the number. Sometimes we write like this. All these things take your mind to the number which we call 3, but no one of these things is the number. The number exists in you and me as a form of understanding, and it never comes out. Therefore, we should approach the number only through symbolism, and we should be able to understand the symbolism and make a nearer and nearer approach to the number. This is all what you can do. You can never define a number or describe a number or show a number on the board or in the book. Numbers are existing only in our understanding. We are using them applied to things around us. Same thing with the sacred word also. The sacred word is more deep and more profound than any one of these numbers. So it requires the key of sound and color and shape to approach. And then you can know the key through another called meaning. The meaning of the sacred word is I am. This is what the scriptures give us. For example, if you read the conversation of Moses with the God on the mountain, Moses asked God, if I go to Egypt, they ask me, what is the name of your God? Then what should I answer? God said, what did he say? I am that I am. If God had said like that, Moses would have gone to Egypt, and when asked what is the name of your God, he would have answered, He is that He is. Therefore, it is not the answer God gave. He never said, I am that I am. But he said, tell him I am that I am. It is different. So, after going there, if you want to utter the name of God, you should always say, I am that I am. And there is no use of saying, He is that He is. So, this total sentence, tell him I am that I am, is a mantra. It should be taken as it is, and we should make an approach through symbolism. We should study it in the light of color and sound and shape, and then in the light of its meaning. For example, the shape of the word of God, the shape of the name of God, that is the sacred word, is what we call a globe, a perfect globe, which is also an egg in its workings. What is the difference between a globe and an egg? An egg gives you a living little thing, whereas some man-made globe can give you nothing. An egg means something which can germinate or generate, that is, which can give you something like yourself. For example, your son or your daughter. That is what is called the process of the utterance of the word. In this world, the sacred word is what uttered in the form of the father becoming a son or a daughter, the mother becoming a son or a daughter. This process is one of the examples of the utterance of the word. We are getting children, but we don't know what the utterance is and what the word is. This whole creation is uttered forth in the form of space globes, which we can call the space eggs. Each egg begins to germinate in the bigger periodicities of time. And we have the solar systems and the galaxies and the planets and the living beings. Like this, we have to approach what the sacred word is and how it exists with us, every one of us. Where does it exist in us? What is its function? What does it do daily with us? And what we have to do with it? And why we should utter it? And what is the process of uttering it? And what is the training and discipline we are to undergo before we utter it? This is the scope of the symbolism of the sacred word, and we try to study it applied to sound and color and also a little bit of shape on the 8th day. This, in short, is the scope and syllabus of our subject. I will give you a detail of the first aspect today. There are mainly 7 colors producing many colors, and if you study the classical music of the scripture, there are 7 scales of sound called the musical scales, and also the utterance of the sacred word in the beginning of this creation was done as the expression of the first 3 colors and sounds, or the expression resulted in the externalization of the first 3 colors or the first 3 sounds. Now, we generally use colors and sounds. In fact, we have to use colors or sound because the same seed gives rise to 2 leaves. For example, if you see a seed giving rise to 2 leaves, similarly there is the sacred word with you which expresses itself into sound and color, which can be called sound or color, because they are the 2 leaves of the same plant coming from the same tree. That is why the leaf of sound contains 7 colors, 7 sounds. We should be able to know something of this in our lesson. Among the various branches of the music of the ancient scriptures, only one nation is existing where this music is still living. That is the Indian nation. In all the other nations, the tradition already died, and now there is the necessity to recapitulate and recollect the whole tradition. So it is very, very difficult to collect the whole thing from other nations. Though we have scriptures, we lost the key, and it is a great difficulty for us to go into them once again. But luckily, the key is living still in one nation. That's the reason why the masters stimulated the minds of some people for some accidents to study and practice in ancient Indian classical music. There are schools for ancient Indian music and dance that are going on in various countries of the Occident. You will get these keys only from those who can apply that music and dancing. There are 7 musical scales according to the classical Indian music, and there are 3 levels of musical sound, which I will explain subsequently. For the present, you remember that there are 3 levels of sound utterance and 7 scales of musical sounds, 3 plus 4, according to the Indian tradition. The 3 levels are your normal tone, your higher tone, and your lower tone. Everyone has his or her normal tone, and there is his higher tone, his lower tone when he whispers something to others. When a person is going in the street, if you want to call him, you will use your higher tone. When you are conducting normal conversations, you will use your middle tone, that is normal tone. When you want to speak whisperingly, for example, when someone is sleeping in the room, you want to speak something to someone like that, then you will use your low tone. So everyone has the 3 levels of sound or tones. In Sanskrit, they are called sthayis, which means levels. I will write in bigger. And these 7 scales of musical sounds are called swaras. The training of the 7 swaras is the first step in classical Indian music. The classical music of every nation has these things, but the total key is lost somewhere in each nation. We should reconstruct the total key carefully once again. Similarly, we have the first 3 colors expressed by the Creator when He uttered this whole creation in the form of the sacred word. In the form of the sacred word. It is symbolically expressed that the sacred word Om is made into 3 syllables. So it is said that in the beginning of the creation, the Creator, who has come out from his own background, the background being called the father of the Creator, and the Son who has come out, he made an utterance of the sacred word as his own existence. Then he made it into 3 syllables. You can see this much explained in the books of Alice Bailey also. But unless you begin to practice the utterance by yourself, any amount of utterance, any amount of explanation is of no use. The more number of pages we try to explain, the more tedious the subject becomes. And the same is the result with many of the books of Alice Bailey. Not that the books are tedious, but often we read the books without making a performance of what is expected of us. That means we use only our intelligence and only we try to understand what is there in the books, which is not at all required with those books. As a result of such a study, our head begins to reel after reading for 2 pages. And then with great difficulty you will read a 3rd page and the book drops from your hand and you go into fine sleep. It is because it is not the process how to read these books. you have to practice something while reading these books. The practical key is to be observed. There are many instructions given in the books of Alice A. Bailey, instructions about personal life, about social life, about our vocational life, and about our duties to humanity, and about proper timing and punctuation of the incidents of the day, without which nothing happens when we read these books. For example, while speaking of the utterance of the sacred word Om, the Tibetan speaks of the art of breathing, which was rightly called pranayama in the ancient days, which is practiced in a wrong sense in the modern days by many. For example, some people suffocate themselves and call it pranayama. Some people use a process of self-smothering like this, no breathing out or no breathing in, and they call this dirty process by the sacred name pranayama. So, the Tibetans speak that the art of breath is different from self-smothering. There is a process of re-establishing rhythm in your breath, and that is pranayama. And when once you begin to re-establish rhythm, automatically respiration stops when your mind stops in meditation. Automatically the respiration stops. Automatically the respiration stops when the mind stops and disappears in yourself through the process of meditation. This is what is called pranayama. The respiration stops by itself and begins when the mind begins to take birth in you again. As long as the mind is working, respiration begins to work. When the mind disappears in you, then respiration automatically stops. This is called pranayama, and you are not expected to stop respiration and smother yourself. And the Tibetan master, while speaking of this, he explains how to practice this art of breathing. Then he says it has everything to do with your daily routine and your behavior. Unless you regulate your daily routine, you can never establish the rhythm and balance in your respiration. So you proceed from the other end, not with the wrong end. When you are making attempts to regulate your respiration, you are starting from the wrong end. If you proceed from the side of regulating your daily routine, establishing a regularity in as many items of the day as possible. Imagine the 24 hours as a rotating circle. If you do something at 6 a.m., establish a periodicity that you do it daily at the same time. So if you do something round about 6 p.m., do it exactly by the same time in the same place. Suppose if you take your breakfast by 9 a.m., daily take your breakfast only by 9 a.m. to the minute. If you go to the office by 10 a.m., daily be in your seat exactly to the minute by 10 a.m. Like this, you multiply the number of items in the day which you can keep up regularity to the hour and the minute without having any tension of programming in your mind. You should be able to maintain this regularity like a child playing some game. If you feel the tension of keeping up this regularity, it is not only useless but also dangerous. You will grow into anxiety and nervousness, daily driving yourself into the hurry of maintaining the regularity. So, if you can succeed in maintaining this regularity, then the geometrical center of the circle begins to manifest itself as the center of your own consciousness, and then automatically the art of breathing can be practiced, because respiration is an activity that is going on in yourself, and the daily routine is an activity which you are creating for yourself. Unless you equate the second type of activity with the first type of activity, that is, unless you equate your man-made activity with the natural activity that is going on in you, you can never dream of establishing a rhythm in your respiration, for the simple fact that every disturbance in your mind creates a corresponding disturbance in the rhythm of your respiration. For example, when you are afraid of something, the respiration is disturbed, the heartbeat is disturbed, the circulation is disturbed. Whenever you are angry, it is disturbed. Whenever you are jealous of some person, it is disturbed. Whenever you experience a hatred of some person, it is disturbed. So, when the daily routine of our man-made activity is causing 1,000 disturbances to the respiration during the day, what is the use of trying to control your respiration with violence? The constitution begins to react against you and produce its own defects and diseases. So, we have to regulate the routine and daily activity, and then only simultaneously practice the art of breathing. When the whole process becomes an utterance of the sacred word Om, then if you begin to utter vocally also, it helps you. This is what the Tibetan master teaches us about the utterance of the sacred word and how to use the sound and the color for it. We should go into the detail in our lessons. My senses are being disturbed and I am tempted into this. And an untrained fellow like me cannot continue the lesson if I am tempted by such sweet things. Keep it. Don't show it to me. So, for today let us understand that there was first the birth of 3 sounds, and then there was the birth of the remaining 4 sounds. In the process of the Creator uttering forth the sacred word, in the process of his respiration, he has his exhalation and inhalation. His exhalation is what we call objectivity of this creation, and again his inhalation is subjectivity of this creation. When he is exhaling, all these solar systems come out. When he is exhaling in each solar system, all the planets come out from the solar system. When he is exhaling in each planet, the atoms of that planet are being created, and the evolution on the planet is taking place, and every individual is self-conscious. And when he is uttering himself, his own word in every individual, We are there making our own little respiration. Our respiration is also one form of his own utterance in us. Many times we may not believe it. We think that our utterance, our respiration belongs to ourselves. Why should it belong to God? But we should remember that we are making respiration only from the time we are permitted to breathe. Before that, we could not breathe because we were not there. So, we are permitted to breathe, and hence we are breathing until the time we breathe our last. Only we are permitted to breathe. Within these two limits, we have certain amount of independence to breathe. Even then, we do not have perfect independence, because breathing is taking its own care and we are not breathing it. It is breathing for us and we are living. We can stop it for a few seconds. That much of independence we have, after which we cannot stop it because we don't want to stop it. Nature produces an idea in our mind. Come on, let us not stop it. Let us breathe and be happy. So, even that amount of independence is not complete. Had nature given us